Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Rick Shrotri. I'm the founder and managing partner of Digital Alpha. We're an innovative investment fund that has really pioneered new investments in technology and communications around the world. I'll walk you through my journey of how I began as an investor, what my path was, and hopefully give you some ideas and inspiration for the future. So I was a student at Penn. I pursued a dual degree program studying both finance at Wharton and international relations in the College of Arts and Sciences. I always knew that I had passion for investments. I knew that I wanted to do business on a global scale, but I didn't know exactly how to harness those interests and leverage those into a professional career. I was fortunate early in my career to join Goldman Sachs, where I worked in the merchant bank, and I was able to invest in the new areas of the economy, which were around the communications frontier, as wireless was becoming much more important to global society, as we had new investments taking place in technology platforms that were really revolutionizing and changing the world. I decided this was the right area to focus on. And subsequent to starting my career in New York at Goldman, I went to Silicon Valley and I joined a company in San Francisco that was doing really disruptive things, taking advantage of the growth of data centers, which were scaling this ability to provide processing of information and to manage it in a new environment called Linux. So that was a nice experience to have at that stage of my life, transitioning from being an investor to having some operational experience. I decided to go to graduate school after that experience, and I went to Harvard Business School. And when I was at Harvard, I had a chance to work with the faculty to see what kind of strategies create performance and outperformance over time and across market cycles. So that experience really did help shape a lot of my outlook as an investor and how I think about the future and areas to differentiate and to be able to leave an impact that's quite distinct on the world. While I loved being an investor, I never forgot the experience that I had in my undergraduate studies to really focus on the world outside of North America as well, and to make sure I had an appreciation for the growth in Asia, how to do business in Europe and around the world. And so I was fortunate as I was coming out of my graduate program to have a chance to work for Samsung Group in South Korea. And they gave me a position in headquarters in Seoul, where I was able to live and work in South Korea and see the world from the east to the west. So that was a very different vantage point, a very different experience to have, and one that was quite enriching and quite rewarding, at that stage of my life. So I loved being an investor. I loved seeing how businesses can work and grow and be shaped from that experience globally. But I had some personal reasons to come back to the US around the 2007 timeframe. And at that point, I was able to join a leading Silicon Valley company that was a pioneer of the internet era. And that company was Cisco Systems. I spent 10 years of my life at Cisco helping them find the next big disruptive platforms and opportunities. Now, my guidance to all of you in thinking about the intersection of your passions and opportunities is that it's not always going to be a linear path. I knew that I liked being an investor. I knew that I liked technology, and I'd invested a lot of my career in those areas. But what I found throughout my professional career is that the next opportunity was not always intuitive. It wasn't always linear and being the next obvious thing to pursue. Rather, the real opportunities emerged when you were to take a step function leap beyond where things are today. So when we were making investments in the corporate world in venture capital, they're typically small investments. They're typically meant to give you exposure and access to new technology. But I had the awareness that sometimes you can get exposed to larger platform opportunities. You can have a chance to build businesses at scale by virtue of what you can see inside a large technology firm that's distinct from being on the outside. And that's because large technology firms are often partnering with governments, with telecom operators, with businesses to build the platforms of the future. So in that context, let me speak about the creation of Digital Alpha. This is a fund that we started in the year 2017 as I spun out of Cisco and left that company. We built a new private equity platform now that really has scaled and delivered very unique value and value add for the future. I'm happy to describe exactly where we invest and how we invest now in these areas of the future. So it'll illustrate for all of you, again, some of the areas for growth in the economy looking forward. We have three areas of investment that we focused on. The first is what we call next generation networks. What is a next generation network? Today, we would call that 5G. We could call that Wi-Fi 6, but really it's the ability to move information faster, to leverage the internet's new protocols to be able to get to higher bandwidth onto devices that consumers use, businesses use, governments use to deliver an outcome. What does that mean on my mobile device? It might mean that I want to watch Disney Plus, or I want to watch Netflix, or I want to watch the next streaming content and platform, but to do it on demand and not just on a fixed device. I want to do that now with higher and higher definition. We've all lived through the era of going from 720 to 1080p. We're now in the 4K video era, and we know what's coming next. We know that 8K video is coming. We know that virtual reality and augmented reality are still in their infancy, and we're going to have much more innovation in these areas in the future. How do you actually manage the infrastructure to make that a reality? How do you invest in the underlying technologies so you can deliver a new network of the future? That, for us, is our focal point of a next generation network. We're building the backbones that make this kind of communication possible for us over remote infrastructure. So it's really vital that we think about next generation networks as being the transmission of data and information, but it has to be done in a secure way. It has to be done in a way that connects traffic around the world such that you're able to reach citizens, reach businesses on demand as needed, and to do so in a way that provides the right economic model. So for us, this innovation was not just about funding into a company that could deliver a next generation network, but it was actually about sharing in outcomes and sharing in partnerships with our, which could be large telecom players, it could be content partners that I mentioned earlier. And so what we did is really launch a series of new deals with British Telecom as an anchor customer, where we were able to enable a new infrastructure of the future, where we built in a new platform that would allow them to deliver new streaming data at very high quality thresholds. We allowed them to stream live content like Wimbledon and broadcast that to a large mass of users on demand. And that really is an innovation that wasn't possible even a few years ago, but for the investments that we've made in a network and in a platform with them. How did we do this? We actually shared the revenue that's being generated on top of the infrastructure. So whether it's Disney Plus running or whether it's advertising from a sports event, we're able to share that revenue, and that economic model is really a distinct feature of how we invest. So it's not only to put money into companies, but it's also to share the revenue that's coming back from enabling a new service, a new platform, a new traffic on that basis. In a similar lens, another shift that's taking place is the movement to the cloud. And the movement to the cloud is one where in technology, it's very similar to what happened to energy production and energy infrastructure. And a lot of people don't know this, but decades ago, energy used to be produced locally. Large companies and governments and businesses would actually have their own generators, and they'd be making their energy locally. Over time, the transmission infrastructure got so good and so reliable, you were able to build very large-scale power plants and distribute that energy with efficiency, with a lower cost, with reliability in such a way that it didn't make sense to have your own infrastructure in-house any further. And so on that basis, you had this shift towards centralized generation, and the same thing is taking place with the internet today. And you have these emergence of very large clouds that are often managed by companies like Amazon, like Google, like Microsoft, that are able to consolidate and to give you scale, give you a lower cost point to be able to provide IT services. And not everything is going to sit in a centralized cloud. There also is a cloud that's going to emerge at the edge. And that cloud at the edge takes us to the last area of investment for us, which is around the Internet of Things, or IoT in short. And so what IoT is this reality that you're not going to have an IP address, not only on your laptop or your mobile device, but even cars that are connected to the internet now have an IP address. Even your thermostat might be connected and make your HVAC systems in your home or your business or your government buildings smart. You're going to have sensors in water systems so you can actually track when there's a problem and solve it in advance of having a real rupture of a pipe or a water quality issue later on. So the reality of IoT is that it can be transformational in our lives to connect more and more devices. You're going to have billions and billions of devices that are connected, not just our IT devices like laptops and phones, but really devices that are used in everyday life, whether it's in our homes, whether it's in businesses, or for governments providing critical services to their citizens. You know, the simple analogy of how you make a traffic light smart. So when you have an emergency vehicle going across a city block and you need to turn those lights more quickly so you can save people's lives, getting them to the hospital faster. That is something we've started to do by enabling the Internet of Things. But think about the possibility of knowing exactly where in a building somebody is, where there's a crisis. Think about being able to get right to a fire very quickly by having a sensor in a fire system that can pinpoint that location for you. Again, you're going to have a very tangible impact on quality of life, on safety, and on the ability to really connect and modernize our infrastructure for the future. So we are investing in the future. We're creating new networks. We're building new platforms. And we're doing so on the basis of the opportunity that we see emerging, that are driven by these advances in how you transmit data, how you manage it centrally in the cloud, and then how you connect individual devices and connect them securely, give them intelligence so they know how to navigate and manage across infrastructure with public sector utilities, with private businesses, and ultimately with consumers. Each of us are going to benefit from the leveraging of IT and information technology in our homes for the future. So hopefully that gives you a snapshot of where we invest and why. Coming back to the personal journey that I've taken to build this firm and this platform, again, what we did is we saw this opportunity to extend the reach from a leading firm in Silicon Valley, a customer base and a partner base that was hungry for investments at scale. And so what we did is build a funding family that today stands at over $1.5 billion of assets under management. And in just a few years, we've demonstrated the ability to create a lot of value in these areas. We're creating this value by picking the right areas for future growth. We're creating this value by partnering with the right teams and finding the right talent to help us scale and capture this opportunity. And we're creating this value by putting in place a financial model and a financial structure that not only provides equity capital and traditional investment, but also shares risk and reward with our counterparties. And that really is my last kind of takeaway to all of you, is to make sure that as you think about innovation, don't just think about what you want to do, but think about how. Think about why. Think about how to put these pieces together, and that ultimately will help you create a platform that we believe, could be scaling, that could be really powerful and disruptive, and frankly, build a lot of value over time. So hopefully my snapshot of my journey over time in building this model over the last 2 decades of my life, how I've taken this transition from being a student to an entrepreneur has been helpful. Very happy to follow up and to share more ideas and inspiration with each of you as you look forward to your own journeys from here. Thank you very much.